Tyler Siskey here with the Water Boys. How we doing, Coach?
Doing great. How are you, brother?
I'm not too bad. The one of the busiest men that is not coaching football. That's I've never seen anybody that is not coaching football do as much coaching football as you're still doing.
Yeah, it's been slam, man. It's been good. But busy's good. Busy's good.
So you coached football for a long, long time. We'll get into some of it, but take me back to 1998 at Troy University. How does a young Tyler Siskey get to Troy University as a student assistant coach in 1998?
All right, so I started at Auburn, played at Auburn. I was a terrible, 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 terrible football player. Just I was hell on wheels as a on scout team and the bench though. I was great at that. Finished up so I Tommy Tuberville gets the job at Auburn and I transferred and went to Troy. That would have been 99. So I was in 98, I was still at Auburn. I played 1 year at Troy and then it's like the legendary. I always joke. I said, you know what? I never wanted my career to end like this because I used to like always make fun of the people. Say, yeah, I had a full scholarship to Ohio State and then blew out my knee. And then, and after that, I just decided just to hang out and work at the local store. I hated those stories. So, but sure enough, I was helping my dad. But I am one of those guys. I was helping my dad paint a house on June the 23rd of 2000. So going into my fifth year, and I fell 40 feet off of a roof and broke my tib, my fib, my femur, two bones in my feet. I got disc issues. I'm lucky to be alive. I landed on my feet, and I guess the best way to describe it is instead of rolling my ankle, I rolled my leg. So yeah, that was no fun. I don't recommend anybody doing that this weekend. That will definitely ruin your day.
All right. So obviously, I played sports at a decently high level. Most of the time, the guys that are sitting the bench that aren't playing are usually the real sports junkies on the team. They're the guys they know everybody's job inside out. They know every side of the ball. They know how to do everything. I'm assuming you were that guy.
I thought I was. I definitely thought I was. I thought I was. And then once you get into coaching, and then so I started as a student assistant at Troy when I got hurt. Coach Blakeney's been one of the most influential people in my career I could ever ask for. He called me. I was actually in the hospital, and he says, "Hey, I talked to Doc. I know you're done. We got a spot coaching, helping coach inside receivers. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Yeah." And that's how I got started in coaching. And you realize, like, as a player, I thought I was really smart, right? I thought I was a smart player. Back then, it's really a shame with the new age of football, the amount of actual football that the current player actually learns. We had to learn everything. I played receiver. You had to understand protections as a receiver because we back then that's how you everything was like an NFL system, right? And so that's how everybody learned. And so based on the protections told you who was hot, who you're hot off of, and things like that. So you had to learn protections as a receiver, which they would never do that now. They have no idea. They have none. It's taken out of their hands. And so, I mean, they have no clue. They will have no idea. So I considered myself a really intelligent player until I walked in my first staff meeting as a coach and I realized I didn't know shit. And starting had a background, but my first meeting as a coach is when I realized I really didn't know anything. And so, it's kind of you just throw your feet in the fire and get with it, learn.
All right, so let's go from Troy to a town in Louisiana that I'm going to completely botch the name of.
It's all right. I'm impressed with your background here, man. I mean, I didn't know that the Google machine took you back that far. I thought it kind of cut everything off.
Listen, brother, been doing radio for
Yeah.
7 years and been in college sports for 6. So, your name, and I'm not going to tell you where I heard it. I'm not going, we can I can tell you offline, but your
Yeah.
name brought up some stories that I was told to ask you about.
Okay. All right. I'll probably know where you got it from based on the story. Go ahead.
So what little town, Northwestern State University?
Yeah.
What's the name of that town? I have no idea.
Natchitoches, Louisiana. Natchitoches. So you have
Thriving metropolis of Natchitoches,
oh,
Louisiana.
awesome, man. So you have I was literally telling this story this morning to somebody. It's funny you said that. So you have Northwestern States in Natchitoches, Louisiana. Stephen F. Austin is in Nacogdoches, Texas. Okay, so they play for the big rivals every year. They play for the biggest trophy in college sports, in college football. It's called Chief Cato. This thing's like 7 foot and change. It's like 300 something pounds, made carved out of wood. I mean, it's a log. And so the legend of Chief Cato is that he had two sons, Natchitoches and Nacogdoches, and they were on the Red River. They were settled on the Red River, which splits, Louisiana and Texas right there. And he made them. They got in a dispute or whatever, and they couldn't live together. So he told them each to walk. I think I may butcher this, so somebody's a historian and they're going to get mad at me. I think it was 3 days, but he told one to walk east, one walk west for 3 days, and that's where they settle. And so if you look on the map, they're almost even distances off of the state line between Louisiana and Texas.
Okay. So then we get into what I'm, and no offense to Troy or Northwestern, but the first school on the list that you coached at that I have any connection with or understand at all is Arkansas State, which anybody that's a deep fan of college sports, Arkansas State is a well-respected athletic program
Today.
uh, today. Now, when you were there in 2002, and I found a video online. Well, I didn't. The team found. I'm not going to take the production team's thunder. I didn't find it. They found a video of you mic'd up on the field
Oh boy.
uh, back at Arkansas State, which was a long time ago. Uh, what a Arkansas State 2002 offensive grad assistant. At this point, have you decided coaching is what I'm going to do, or do you still kind of think at some point this is going to run out? I'm going to how do I even keep this thing rolling?
No, I mean it was plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D. I mean, I didn't have a, everybody says, "Oh, you need to have a plan B in life." I did not, I actually, when I went to Auburn out of high school, I started in engineering, and after we were on quarters at the time, and I realized halfway through the first quarter that engineering wasn't about driving trains. I didn't realize that it was something else, right? And so after I did not have a great first quarter there at Auburn, and that's thanks. I don't even know if this guy's still alive. I have not communicated with him. Actually, Dr. Mills was the chemistry professor at Auburn at the time, and I owe my coaching career to Dr. Mills, the chemistry professor at Auburn University at the time, because I learned really quick that there's levels to this stuff, and I was not in the correct levels. That was it was chemistry 163. It was like an intro as a weed out engineering class, and they weeded me out. They took the roundup and got my ass out of there. So, I knew right then I went from engineering to physical education. So I knew I was going to be a coach the whole time. I actually had no plans to coach in college. I didn't have to coach in college. It's just kind of how the path took me.
Now, who was head coaching at Arkansas? I know, but for
Yeah.
the sake of this,
So Steve Roberts was the head coach, and he was also the head coach at Northwestern State. So he got the job. We won there. We lost to Montana in the playoffs in 2001. And then he got the job really like December 22nd, 23rd to Arkansas State. And then we all kind of, over the course of the next week or so, we all kind of meandered up that way.
all right. So I'm gonna tell you a little story because it ties into where you went from Arkansas State. I got a call from one of my best friends in 2003 who
Okay.
said, "I want you to go watch a high school football game with me." And I was in high school my senior year, and I said, "Well, I assumed I don't know if you know much about Oklahoma, but I assumed we were going up to the north or northeastern part of the state. We was going to go up to Bixby, Tulsa Union, Jenks." And he said, "No, we're going to Putnam City High School." And I said, "I don't want to go watch a game at Putnam City High School." And he said, I'm going to take you to a game. You're going to see the greatest football player you've ever seen play high school football."
Okay.
And I said, "Well, what's his name?" He said, "I'm not even going to tell you. They just want you to find out." So this tall, lanky kid that you could tell was Native American is playing quarterback. And the first time he dropped back and threw the ball 74 yards for a touchdown, I said, "Who in the world is that?" The guy sitting next to me said, That kid's name is Sam Bradford." And I watched what I thought was what looked like a professional playing against eighth graders.
Yeah.
You had the St. Paul's Episcopal School, and you got a kid playing quarterback for you in high school. Three-time national champ AJ McCarron from Alabama. What in the world is it like coaching a kid who is that good at the high school level?
Yeah, AJ. So when I got to St. Paul, so I GA'd at Arkansas State for 2 years, and then got married and had to get a real job. So I went to St. Paul's, and from the second that I arrived, they're like, "Hey, we got this kid, and he's like in eighth grade, and he's he may have been seventh grade when I got there because I got there in kind of the spring, and he's going to be in eighth grade, and he's going to be really good." And I'm sitting here going like, guys, and it was very he was very skinny, but I mean, just arm massive amounts. Like you knew when it left his hand, you're like, dude, this guy's legit. Like I'm like, oh, I mean, like he was throwing it in eighth grade as good as some like juniors, and recruits and things like that. So you knew that he could spin it. And then, the thing that made AJ different, he's always been my bar. It kind of had a cheat code going when I went back to college and recruiting quarterbacks a little bit. He's always been the bar because it wasn't just, I mean, the arm talent that he had, it was everything else. He's competitive, he's fiery, he kind of checks all the boxes. He makes the other 10 guys better when he's in the huddle. They believe in him. He's got a very magnetic personality of people wanting to, follow him as he leads. But just from a skill set standpoint, I have never seen someone that can take it didn't matter if it was a football, a baseball, or a basketball, any round sport object that went in his hand, he could pretty much put it where he wanted to, and the timing and everything else. He's probably the most accurate passer I've ever seen or in the same thing in basketball. He could shoot threes and all that stuff, never missed. And baseball, he can make he was a draftable baseball pitcher, could make it move, and he could really. His arm talent was, I mean, he's just been blessed. I mean, he was blessed. The good Lord took care of his arm, man. He's got a golden arm.
And shout out to AJ McCarron. I had completely forgot. Somebody the other day was like, "When did he stop playing football?" I was like, "Oh, it had to been." But then I just looked it up this morning. He played just a couple years ago in the XFL.
He played this past season. Yeah, he's still going to play. I think he's going to play again this year. He's kind of in a position from an NFL. He last year he played. He went because it's a spring league, so he went XFL to the Cincinnati Bengals last year, and then straight back into the XFL. So he played like a year and a half without having any time off. And he's played over 10, 11 years in the league. And so at this point in time, if he goes back, he doesn't want to go back to be jumping up and down from practice squad. If he goes, to be away from his family, because he's going to he's made his money. He wants to play. So if he gets a call to actually go play, I think he would go play. But I don't think he's going to go sit the bench if he doesn't, just to sit the bench.
Yeah, I mean,
Play the XFL again this year. That's the plans.
uh, which by the way, I love AJ McCarron. Just when he's on y'all's podcast, he may be the one guy that talks as candidly about the position of quarterback at the college level that I've ever seen doing any media at all.
Well, I mean, he probably gets that honesty. He probably got the candid stuff early in his life. But yeah, I mean, there's no sense in sugarcoating it. That was kind of we had a very fun relationship as a player coach, and then we were both young though. You know what I mean? Like, and it's funny as it started out more of a big brother because I was so young. I was 20, I was 24, 25 when I started coaching him, and he's what 14, and so it's gone in from that kind of relationship to now, we're in the 40s and 30s, so it's kind of turned into a good friend relationship as we've gotten older.
This is a little bit off of your coaching timeline here, but our other podcast, we've got an 11-year two-time All-Pro NFL vet, Justin Bethel, just played with the Dolphins a couple of years ago, and we're trying to get him to retire. I spend a good chunk of my week every week just hang it up. 11 years, two All-Pros. I think you've done what you needed to do. But we were talking the other day about the mentor mentee relationship in college football and how with NIL and the portal, how so much of that has changed. You being so close with AJ, how important is that mentor mentee relationship with college players?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously important. I mean, you look at the staffs that can afford it, right? These big staffs, everybody's got several. They're under the player development title or whatever title they have, but yeah, it's huge because it's especially with the demands that are on the college coach. The college coach is not there all the time. You spend a lot of time on the road. You got to have somebody. You got to have a rock that you can go and when for anything, right? It's not necessarily I mean, a lot of these guys, and just it's the way college football is, and I don't think this is a fan's perspective, but most players in college football come from a single parent home, and they don't have a male role model or male influence in their life, and you're in your most transformative years from 18 to 22, and you need to have somebody that you can that can be that person for you in your life. But yes, it's huge, and it's easier to have, in my opinion. I think it's easier to have those guys on staff that have been there, done that, and guys that have gone through the same things that you have, whether it be at your school or for that coach or whatever it is, to have that sounding board to go. But yeah, it's a huge part of every staff.
You think that's and Justin and Craig, one of our other co-hosts, made the comment when a kid can just get mad and leave. It sometimes they were discussing back and forth. Does that change the way you can hold a player accountable?
Oh, 100%. Look, I'll say this, and I'm sure you'll get, whenever you post this video, I'm sure you'll get the people that blah, 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 blah. Look, I'll say this for 100,000 times. I am for players getting paid. Always have been, always will be. With that being said, the reason that college football is broken, and the reason it will always be broken until they break off, which they're meeting on it today, until they break off. And that's the only answer to this. We can sit here and we can come up with all these solutions we want to. They've had 10,000 times they could have fixed this, and they kept kicking the can down the road until they've put themselves in a corner where there's only one solution. All right. With all that being said, the worst thing that has ever happened to college football is immediate eligibility. It's the worst thing that's happened. And I know you got probably a larger audience, and I'll always say this. In what sport, okay? Imagine this. Do we agree that the NFL is the best sporting organization that's ever been created?
Oh yeah, and it's the space between that number two are pretty far apart.
Okay. Imagine a world in the National Football League where there is no salary cap and unlimited free agency. Okay. So for the fans that don't know, Patrick Mahomes, pretty good player in the NFL, right? He just won his 85th gazillion Super Bowl already at a young age with the Chiefs. Okay. Well, Jerry Jones, our good friend Jerry Jones, is down in Dallas, and he's getting on up there, and they've struggled at they're missing a couple pieces to get him over the top. He picks up the phone, and he says, "Patrick, this is Jerry Jones. Patrick, this is Jerry Jones. I want to win another Super Bowl before I get out of here. So here's what I'm going to do for you, Patrick. I'm going to pay. I know you're getting your contract is for $450 million there in Kansas City. Here's what I'm going to do for you. You come play for me this year. I'm going to give you $1 billion. And did I mention, Patrick? Did I mention that we are a tax free here in the state of Texas? How long do you think it's going to take for Patrick Mahomes to pack up his stuff and leave Kansas City to go to the Dallas for $1 billion a year?
It'd be about a 30-second decision.
Okay. Now let's say Patrick arrives in Dallas. It's the off season. He arrives and they go to OTAs. Patrick goes to OTAs and he's like, man, all we got is CeeDee Lamb, man. We don't have a whole lot of other people to throw it to. I calls his agent, this is terrible. I don't have anybody to throw to. And he goes, hey, good news, Patrick, because I just got a call from McDaniel. They're going to move on from Tua. They're going to give you $1.5 billion to come to Miami to be their quarterback. And they got Jalen Waddle. They got Tyreek Hill. They got A-Chain. They got all these weapons. And guess what? Florida's also tax-free. He goes, man, that sounds great. How long do you think it's going to take for him to leave Dallas to go to Miami? About 5 seconds, right? Now, think about that. And everybody's probably laughing right now. Oh, that's funny. All that. That's exactly what is happening in college football right now. Right now. And I'll give you an example. Tyler Barron played football at Tennessee last year. He committed and came to Ole Miss for like a day. Didn't like it. So he goes from Tennessee to Ole Miss for a short period of time. Then he goes to Louisville for spring practice. Didn't like it at Louisville and now started the season with the Miami Hurricanes. Now explain to me how that make sense.
What is the I think I know what I'll give you what my opinion is on the answer, because when I got into college sports, we were right there when the conversations had just started about NIL.
Right.
And I was one of the guys that took like the deep dive on it so that I could tell my idiot friends exactly how this worked because they were all like, "They're just gonna be able to pay on." I was like, "Oh my gosh." Um, in my opinion, the fix for this is a players' union and a president of college football
Mhm.
that would function in the same role that you have in the NFL and breaking those schools up that and putting them in saying, listen, football, great. You can still be the University of Oklahoma, still be Ole Miss, you can still be University of Alabama, but your football program functions independently, and these kids are going to have to sign contracts, employment contracts that your players association negotiates with the college football, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. And it's like at the end of the day, again, the NFL is a pretty good model, right? Here's what blows my mind is we have the same people who are fighting to that, like they don't the people who are fighting to stay in and all that stuff, and all the politicians and rule makers, they've never broken a huddle or worked in a university a day in their life. They don't understand how things work. They're just, I mean, I watch ER on TV. That doesn't mean I can go perform heart surgery. And so they don't understand how things go. And like, that's one thing that's also messed up about football is in sports in general and the collegiate level is the people that are making the rules and regulations never even played themselves. And so it makes no sense. And they don't understand how things work. So you have what happens in that case is you have a bunch of people that, hey, I got a great idea and it's really not a great idea. And they spend all this time and money and investment trying until they realize, oh, that's not a good idea. Then they go back to the drawing board and start over again. The only way the only way the sports say, not the only way, it's what's going to happen because this House versus the NCAA thing is going to bankrupt the NCAA. Okay, so there's no avoiding this. So it's happening whether they like it or they don't because you've put yourself in a corner. It's the only way out. You break off top 70 teams. So I always say it's the power fives and then some. Okay, power fours, what are you gonna call them now? So like your Liberties, your Memphises, your Tulanes, your South Floridas. The power. Notre Dame's not technically considered. Power five and then some that have money, right? Then you create a players union, okay, and it's going to have to be the new league is probably going to have to start the players union until they can vote who runs their union, right? But you have to unionize and you have to collective bargain, okay? Now, here's what really irritates me is because the same people that are in Washington D.C. going, "Oh, we need to make them employees and this and that and this and that," they fight in Washington D.C. The same people that are fighting to make them employees don't realize that by doing that, you're going to eliminate opportunities from other people because if you make them employees, now it's a business and you're not going to run the business off a loss every year. Well, there's only one sport that makes money everywhere. There's one sport. Okay. So the solution is, and there's this little thing, this little federal law, it's called Title IX, and nobody wants to address that. And this is what the problem is, right? It's a federal law, not changing, boss. So you have to break off. Now, once I take those 85 scholarship numbers away from the NCAA and put them in an own organization, what did I just do? I just created 85 brand new opportunities for other people to play those sports inside the NCAA. And so I think what you're going to have is you're going to at least a football break off. I would actually argue it needs to be basketball too, but a football break off. Let's just start there and then let the NCAA run the rest of it. I think it's going to be a compromise that will work because, contrary to popular belief, the NCAA makes most of their money off the basketball tournament. And so it all comes down to money. You have the other big issue, the hurdle that we've been fighting here is that, and I would too, I'm not criticizing because if I was in that position, I'd be doing the same thing. The people who are leading college football are these conference commissioners, right? Well, they're self-serving. They got, Greg Sankey I think, is the best in the business. Well, he's got 16 schools that he's self-serving. He's trying to get the best deal for these 16 schools. Phillips is trying to get the best for the ACC, right? So you got to have, like you said, you have a commissioner of college football that says, "Hey, Greg Sankey, thank you for your input. Thank you for your input, but this is what we're doing." And you got to have somebody that's at the head of the table that's for the betterment of the sport amongst those 70 schools. And I get it. I get the argument. My co-host Neil McCready is one of them that said, "Hey, it just needs to be a Big Ten SEC thing." That's cool, but at the same time, there's value in other programs and other leagues, right? You can't just say, "Oh, we're going to break this off in Kansas State. You stay over there." You know what I'm saying? Like you got there are other programs. Clemson appreciates you, Florida State appreciates you, Miami appreciates you. There are other programs. I think that's why it needs to be basically the Power Five and then some.
Yeah, and especially when you start going into TV negotiations, you're gonna need the USCs, you're gonna need the Oregons, you're gonna need, and why by that I just mean that end of the country. You're gonna need that end of the country, and you're gonna need more, TV. You're gonna have to take some Texas schools that maybe you don't want to take that are
I think
playing in the Big 12.
Yeah, I really think it's as simple as the Power Five and then the ones that can afford it, right? And then
Yep.
because part of the affording part is the owners, instead of having Jerry Jones as the owner of Dallas Cowboys, the athletic department is now the owner of the team, right? And so you got this set up to where now you collective bargain, you can pay them from the school. Now they can be contract employees and all that thing. I will say this: I think the education model needs to stay intact. I am a firm believer in that because a lot of these kids, it's cool, but if we have an opportunity to provide education, I think that's very important. I would not want to lose that aspect of it.
So we're talking about big boy football. So let's get into when you got into what the people in college football call the big boy conference. 2012, you find yourself at Ole Miss. What's the difference between South Alabama, Arkansas State, and going into Ole Miss for in the SEC for the first time?
Well, it's not that's not the coaching. I'll say this, and I'll always say this. I think if you want to find the best coaching, best X's and O's schematics, look at the lower levels because that's where coaching actually matters. And the only thing that matters once you get to that level is the Jimmies and the Joes. They don't worry about beating you on the field scheme wise. They try to beat you in recruiting. Their DNA. Their DNA is better. I always say that battle. I said, guys, we can scheme up what we want to scheme up, but that battle was won and lost. That schematic battle was won and lost within sperm at the egg, right? So we can sit here and draw this up to we're blue in the face, but like I watched Cam Newton play, okay, and like this guy had his Heisman moment, and it's all over the internet, so you can go find it when he makes this heroic run against LSU. There are 3 all SEC players unblocked at the point of attack. 3 all SEC players at all 3 levels unblocked at the point of attack. He stiff armed one, jumped over one, and outran the other one. Like there's no so. I always say like when you start watching Sunbelt Group of 5 play, that's really good scheme, right? Because all the players are close to the same. Once you get to that level, it's all about players. And that's probably the biggest difference. And then obviously fan interest and all that stuff. And the trolls get a little louder when you get at the bigger schools. But everything else is money, players, and trolls. That's probably the biggest difference.
So, you'll probably be able to tell where maybe what person or group of people I got this little thing from when I started asking about Tyler Siskey when he got into the SEC. I got told ask him about Tyler Siskey telling Alabama coaches Ole Miss plays when he got to Alabama. So I did a little bit of deep dive on this. I had no idea. I'm from Oklahoma. We just got into the SEC.
Okay.
And there are about 10 YouTube videos of you in a white Alabama pullover where people are thinking you're doing something that is just, oh man, it's just so unethical that you got a pair of binoculars and you're saying what plays. Do you remember that at all?
Alabama has really been locked in on what Ole Miss has tried to do offensively. They haven't been fooled by much of anything. Again, I go back to Tyler Siskey being on the Alabama staff. Spent those years with Hugh Freeze. Even though he's not coaching on the field, he was very involved this week in helping to prepare the Alabama defense.
They got 1 4th down on this drive. Now they need 5 to pick up another. Wallace throws too low, incomplete.
Do I remember it? I remember it. Yeah, do I remember it? Like who told you that? I don't know. I mean, a bunch of people know that one. I'll find out who it was after this. But no, look, that's been one of the most overblown things ever.
I know that, and you know that, but
yeah.
there are people, and when I say fans, we know what group of people yeah.
So yeah, I called plays. I called plays in that system. I didn't need to steal the signals to know how to stop it. I mean, you know what I mean? Like
you didn't need to pull a Connor Stallion.
I was actually pretty familiar with the system, believe it or not. I coached in that system and called plays in that system. Very familiar with it. Let's just put it that way. The actual when I got caught on it's actually a funny story. So Kevin Steele, who I love to death, Kevin Steele was at Alabama, and we were getting ready to play Ole Miss, and as a joke, he's just Kevin's personality. We're walking on the practice field together, like the Thursday or whatever, Thursday practice of that week. And Todd Blackledge was calling the game. And so Todd they come to practice, a couple of days or whatever. And so he's at practice that Thursday. It may have even been Friday. I don't remember, but we're walking on the practice field regardless. And Todd knows Kevin, and they were talking, and I'm walking with Kevin kind of behind me. He goes, "There's our secret weapon right there, Siskey. He knows everything they're doing." Just says Kevin being funny. Well, sure enough, they on the deal, they make a whole segment, deal out of it, show it on TV and all that stuff. I was actually, the moment that happened, I was in an argument, not an argument, but I was correcting. I didn't even have a headset on. I purposely did not wear a headset that week. Did not even have a headset on. I'm in an argument. It was like 4th and 5 or something. And I always help with personnel. That was what I did on the defense, because being an offensive guy, it's easy for me to tell personnel coming off the field. And so Kirby always called plays off of personnel. And so I was identifying personnel. And so that's why the binoculars were up, because I was actually looking at personnel. Well, Freeze went from 11 personnel to what we called 10 red. Okay. And so 10 red was taking is a red zone, 10 personnel, but red zone, we put a big outside receiver as 3. And when 3 goes on the ball, it's 100% pass tendency. And so it was 4th and something, and one of the analysts was arguing on the headset, yelling, "They're going to run it, they're going to run it, they're going to run it." And I said, "No, he's going to pass because number 3's on the ball." So that was when I got caught on that. Me looking at the signals, like there's no way in a tempo offense for me without a headset on to read a play while they're going tempo, to read the signal, give it to somebody with a headset on that gives it to somebody on the headset on the field that gets it communicated to players for the ball snap. That's asinine. So it would actually mess everybody up. So in the world of like the RPO world, to say run pass and get you beat too. So it's all that stuff is extremely overrated. Since you got a bigger show, I'll tell this story about it. I did signal stealing for like, what's crazy is I did it every week. I actually wasn't even doing it that day. And so I was like, golly. So I was like, are y'all kidding me? I didn't have to do it. And so we played Ohio State in the college football playoff. I was at Alabama. We knew every single play they were like going slow. We could communicate it. We knew every single play they were running the entire game. Every single play. The entire game. And they ran through our ass like shit through a tin horn. We couldn't slow them down for nothing. I was like, here comes counter to the left with Zeke, and we'd all be there, and he'd just run right through somebody. And we had dudes, you know what I mean? Just like, I was like, I don't know. Hey, 3rd down. Hey, they're throwing the ball to Michael Thomas right here on the dig on 3rd down completion, 1st down. I mean, there's nothing. Just good luck. So I say all that to say this. That shit, like this whole Connors, that shit is so overrated. It is so overrated. Especially in today's football.
Well, and he has said as much. He has said, "Listen, I'm just one guy. Every school," in fact, he's like, "I can't tell you the names because I don't want to get guys in trouble, but every school got a guy doing what I'm doing."
Every school, every school, every school has your signals. Every school has a guy on your staff stealing signals, and every guy on your staff is getting signals from your opponent from previous opponents. Every week at every school I have ever coached at in my entire career, it happens.
We're just breaking hearts. So let's break a few more hearts of college football fans, because our other podcast, it's kind of, we love doing that. So I'm going to ask you some questions. These aren't from our fans, but these are questions I've gotten over the 6 or 7 years, because I'm a University of Oklahoma fan. My granddad was a diehard University of Arkansas fan.
Let's go, Boomer.
So, down here we take football pretty seriously. And when we made the switch over to the SEC, a lot of people came to me. They're like, "Oh, University of Arkansas, like, what do we, And I got into a conversation with a guy, and I said, here was the big difference between the Big 12 and the SEC when the Big 12 was at its peak. Was the Big 12 had shifted everything to, you're going to have to figure out how to outscore a team, because we're going to put dudes at every position, and we're going to recruit the best quarterbacks in the country, and we're going to run these crazy offenses. And then the SEC was coming out of the tail end of like what we grew up calling in Oklahoma smash mouth SEC football, which was grinded out, defense first. But how much of that was true? How much of that was fan perception? Was where you when you guys were in the SEC and looking, or other conferences, other schools are looking at what Mike Leach had brought in with Oklahoma and how that had spread across the Big 12, this running gun, widespread, throw it 500, yards a game. What were the other coaching staffs and other conferences looking at the Big 12 and going, that's crazy, as much as fans think they were doing it and didn't respect it, or how much of it was like, boy, no wonder nobody could stop anybody in that league. Look at what they're doing.
No, I think it all goes back to recruiting, right? And when you look at how that's why the game has changed. Like I think it's easier to join the SEC right now than it has been in the past because of the portal. But let's go back 5 years ago, go back in the past, what you're talking about. There's a reason that Texas and Oklahoma were dominating the Big 12 for all those years. And it's because of what they could recruit up front. Texas and Oklahoma were blue bloods in the recruiting world and for a long time. Kansas State, not necessarily, right? Or you look at now they'll have a year every once in a while. Baylor, not so much. Like you had these runs, they had runs, but I'm talking about consistent performance year over year. But you look at the SEC, right? The SEC, everybody want to go play in the SEC, but how is the SEC built? SEC and the Big Ten, both, if you look at the style of play, why were the style of plays like that? It was because they pretty much, between the SEC and the Big Ten, you had first choice on big boys. Now you could go get the linemen on both sides of the ball that you wanted, and in the Big Ten, that's where you can throw, just like in the South, you can throw a rock and find a skill player. Up north, you can throw a rock and find a 6'7", 330-pound tackle, right? And so, it all goes back to recruiting. And if you can't recruit, like linemen are the hardest to find, right? So finding a really good offensive lineman and defensive lineman, that's the hardest part. Finding a skill player, dime a dozen. Like there are players out there, like you look at Justin Jefferson, okay? Like anybody could have recruited him. Genty at Boise, anybody could have recruited him. Like you look at Quinshon Judkins now that's at Ohio State. Like he left the state of Alabama without having an offer from an in-state school. And so skill players are and so when you're at the Big 12 level, there are plenty of talented skill players to go around. Okay. It's all about up front. And so these spread offenses, and what Gundy did, what Kevin Sumlin did at A&M before that one back clinic, Dana Holgerson, those guys, those one back guys, what they did a really good job of in the late 2000s, 2010, early 2010s, is they found a way to move the football and be explosive even in the run game without blocking anybody. Okay, like we used to have a joke is like, hey, we just need you to get out of the way. We'll send the whole offensive line to the right. We'll hand it off on speed sweep over to the left. Whereas now it's just my skill players blocking the DBs. We just need you guys to get out of the way. Like they found a way to be creative in the run game to where they didn't have to block anybody, and they started throwing it so much. Now they're starting to get five-man boxes. And if I got 5-on-5 in the box, now I can run the quarterback. Now I have an advantage. So I think it was based on recruiting, being able to recruit those big boys. Now, as we flash forward, and because the game has changed, so now you have the transfer portal. Okay, the SEC and the Big Ten. That's the reason I believe you're seeing these upsets and these games and things like that. They're not able to stack talent like they used to, because these kids are going to hit the easy button and they're gone. They're not sitting and watching. They're not sitting watching play. I just saw like yesterday, Jaheim Otis, who was from Mississippi, an elite defensive lineman. He's not playing because the new scheme changed, things like that. He's out. Back in the old days, you wouldn't do that. And so he would sit and he'd learn how to play, develop, and become a better player, fight through adversity. Now those kids are leaving and going somewhere else and playing. And so the depth advantage that the SEC and the Big Ten had, that was the trick, right? It was the depth. We did an exercise with Coach Saban every year. I thought it was awesome. He would make us write out. We'd rank the team. He'd go 1 through 105. Right when we get our 105, whoever's reporting, he would make you get a piece of paper and rank from 1 to 105 the best football players on our team. Every coach. And then Joe Panunzio, he was our ops guy. So Joe would take that and like make a spreadsheet out of it and kind of give him a score and an average and all that stuff. And we would go over it, during that. And so, but his point wasn't just to wear us out. His point was this, is he believed, and it's true, your football team is only as good as number 41 through 60. Because everybody, that's why you see upsets. That's why you see, like we were at South Alabama, we were able to go beat Mississippi State. That's why you see, we're at Arkansas State, we're able to beat Texas A&M. Northwestern State beat TCU. That's why you see some upsets from time to time, because you can roll out your 22 and you can compete. If it's 22 on 22, you can compete just about. There's not as much there's a lot more parity than people think in the top 22. Once you start, all right, my guy's having to play 60 snaps, but your guy's having to play 20, and you're rolling another 20 that's fresh, another 20 that's fresh, and they're the same quality player or more as talented player. That's where games are won and lost, is 41 through 60 on your roster. The portal has taken that away, because these 41 through 60 guys aren't sitting in Alabama. They're not sitting at Georgia. They're not sitting at Florida, wherever. They're going to Utah, to Kansas State, to Colorado, wherever. They're going to these other places and they're playing and being one of the 22. And so that's why you're seeing a lot of the parity right now. And like I said, there's no better time, in my opinion, for an Oklahoma and a Texas to make the transition and succeed than right now.
It's last thing I've got on that transition. I'm one of the guys in the minority that thinks that Brent Venables has one of the toughest jobs in the last 10 years of college football, which is to take a program that is used to scoring 60 to 70 points a game and rebuild that with the culture to go in and be able to play defense. And it showed this year for us so far that he's done a decent job.
A great job.
With strengthening the depth on the defensive end. And because of that, and he being a defensive guy, the offensive side has taken a little bit longer. When you're having to change the culture of a program like that, where you go, listen, I know what you're used to doing. It's used to being scoring a minute and a half. You've got back-to-back Heisman Trophy winners or Heisman Trophy candidates at quarterback. You got 4 or 5 speed all over the offensive side for wide receivers. We actually have to take the focus off of that a little bit and be able to be balanced on both sides of the ball. How hard is that job, and how long does that job usually take a coach to do?
Well, I think it depends on the job, right? I think you can get it done a little quicker now, obviously, with no 85 or no 25. Today they're throwing away the NLIs, so that's why not? There's whatever, right? I will say this: I think he's doing a great job. I think he's doing it the right way. Oklahoma is really good on defense. They have a young offensive line and young quarterback room. Okay, and the portal is the reason that you're in a lot of these situations that you're in right now. Okay, if the portal was in existence, like the portal, in my opinion, has actually probably hurt the Oklahoma advancement, particularly on the offensive side, by losing so many dudes, particularly up front. And then we can call it what we want to, but the portal is the reason Dylan Gabriel left. Okay. Now he's also the reason you got him to start with too. So, I mean, we can say that, but if you weren't concerned about Jackson Arnold leaving, like you wouldn't have been concerned in old days, you're going to make sure, you know what I'm saying? Like you got young quarterbacks and a young offensive line. I don't care what league you play in. That's not a great recipe for success. Now, what I like personally, this is my roster building. What I like about Brent Venables and what I like about what Oklahoma's doing is that's going to catch up. Okay. That's going to catch up because those guys are going to get older. That's going to catch up. What they lost, having to replace all that, is just not realistic. But I will say this. When was the last time somebody won a national championship with a bad defense?
Well, it hadn't been done. Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay, perfect. What's the expectation at Oklahoma?
Oh, national championships.
Okay, so if you want to do that, you got to do this. Okay, you can get to the playoffs. You can go get there by outscoring people. But at the end of the day, if you want to win the damn thing, you better be good on defense, because offense is a rhythm thing. It's an execution thing, and there's going to be off days. You're going to have off days. Very few times. Kansas City Chiefs pretty good. Okay, they lose games too. Okay, because they have an off day on offense, rhythm, whatever. Right? They don't get it going on offense. You're going to have off days. If the point of the drill, which it is to win a championship, you have to be very good on defense. And so again, you can get there. Okay, you can get there, but you better be damn good on if you're gonna win the thing. You're going to have to be good on defense, and so that's why I like what he's doing, and they're really good on defense, and so that's kind of my deal when it comes to roster building.
Well, and fans have a pretty short memory because they'll refer to like the teams of 2008, 2005, 2006, and I'm like, right. You're also talking about Rocky Calmus. You're talking about
Football doesn't exist for me. Like we're talking, we might as well be talking about water polo before 2012, 13. When the RPO started, the whole game changed.
Yeah.
So pre-RPO, we're in a whole. Seriously, it's the difference between water polo and college football. It's a different sport. You can't do the you have to. The RPO world has changed the entire complexity of the game of football. So that's kind of how I look at it.
I got to ask you about you are a member of a very small group of men in the history of college football that have gotten to coach under what I think is the greatest coach to ever touch a football. And listen, for all of my OU fans that are going to watch this podcast, I get it. Like Bud Wilkinson, Nick Saban is the greatest football coach, in my opinion, no matter whether you're talking NFL or college.
Yeah, I grew up in Alabama, so we had Bear Bryant. I still say Nick Saban's the best.
How much what's truth and what's legend with Nick Saban? And how much does he like the legend part of it?
Not at all. I mean, what you see with him is he's very what's the right way to put this? He's very regimented. He's very, very structured, very organized. What he literally eats the same thing for breakfast. He did, unless his retirement's taking him out of it. He eats the same thing for breakfast and the same thing for lunch every day. Everybody talks about the 2 oatmeal cream pies, but they don't talk about the turkey chef salad at lunch. That he eats the same thing every single day. So he's a creature of habit. He genuinely is as unplugged as any human being on the planet. He doesn't have the social media. I'm going to sit down and do an interview with him. I'm going to ask him how close was he really. I think I was really close to getting him on Twitter one time. I felt really good about it, and then he just kind of like shot it down out of the blue. I mean, I was there, man. I thought I had him. But no, he's just very unplugged to the point to where like he would have no idea about rankings, and he would every signing day he'd be like, "How did we do today?" I mean, like he literally had no idea about rankings, or somebody didn't ask, didn't care about all that stuff. He's very so there's a lot of truth to the legend, I guess is what I'm saying. Does he care about it? No. Maybe now as he's older and he's finished, maybe that it may be somewhat important to him, but it never motivated him. Does that make sense? Like it never was a reason why I'm doing this is because I want to be remembered as the greatest to ever do it. He truly, he was so process oriented, and got everybody in the building to be so process minded that it really was about the process, and it was about, and it wasn't about, winning the day. It was about what are we doing right now, and so yeah, I think a lot of it's actually the legend and all that stuff is true. And does he care about it? Maybe now. I don't know. I'm probably a good question to ask him. But I know he didn't while I was there.
So I grew up a Chicago Bulls fan, so obviously Michael Jordan fan, and I've heard a lot of people talk about you could watch when Michael stepped on the court, you could almost watch the other team know at some point they're going to do something and Michael is going to take advantage of that. And just having that stick in your mind while you're playing him was almost as hard as just playing him, all in its own. Is trying to get your brain wrapped around the fact you can beat him, but all you're thinking about is, yeah, but the shot against Cleveland and, oh my, all these things. How much of that when Nick stepped on a field, because you've coached on the other side, how much of that do you look over there and go, man, that's Nick Saban. If we screw up, this is the guy that's going to take advantage.
It wasn't really a Nick Saban thing. It was a players thing. People forget, Alabama fans in particular, when they get mad at Kellen DeBoer, they forget that he was his first year he went 6-6 and lost to Louisiana Monroe. All right, and so he what changed? He didn't get smarter overnight. He got better players, and so he gets that, but he's obviously phenomenal coach. But again, it was more about the players we had. Um, and players that were there before I got there and players that were after. I mean, it's a different breed now. I mean that run of talent that was there is like crazy. It's like, I mean, this is not a joke. My first year at Alabama, our running back room was T.J. Yeldon, who played in NFL, Kenyon Drake played in NFL, Derrick Henry, and Alvin Kamara, and Alti Tenpenny. And Alti Tenpenny was really good. He tragically passed away in a car accident, but we had dudes, and we had Tyron Jones. He was another dude that was really good, and we were loaded. And you follow it up, a guy leaves, and Damian Harris comes in, and you had it's just like it's Bo Scarborough, Damian Harris. It's just dudes. You know what I mean? Just over and over and over and over and over again. And like defensive linemen, we had Jaron Reed, we had Jonathan Allen, we had Deron Payne, we had we had all kinds of. I mean, I'm leaving out dudes. I mean, everybody that played defensive, everybody that was in the D line room was playing in the NFL and getting drafted. I mean, we just had guys, and so that's what I'm talking about. Snap 20s over with, they're off the field, and then here comes, I'm sorry, Jonathan Allen, he's tired. Let's go put Deron Payne in. You know what I mean? It's like it just over and over and over, and it was just that constant just pressure of dudes. Hey, C.J. Mosley, he needs a break. Can we put in Reuben Foster for C.J. Mosley? It's just over and over. It's every spot at every position. And that was kind of that's the part that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and from watching it as long as I have, you used to, if a piece got swapped out, you could watch the other side go, all right, now that's the guy we're going to target because he just came in and he may not be. And with Alabama, you never saw a coach be able to go, all right, well so now let's run to that side of the field. This guy, and because one was as good as two and two was as good as three at certain positions.
Well, it won us. I mean, it's won us games. I remember our starting tight end got hurt at some point in time. The LSU game was maybe an LSU or somebody. I don't remember who we were playing. And then we put this little true freshman named OJ Howard in the game, and they are like, oh, we don't have to cover him like we did the other ones. So they put a backer out there, and he just caught a slant and took it 80 yards to the house. Like it's just constant pressure over and over. Like Marlon Humphrey is a Pro Bowler. Marlon Humphrey did not see the field until his second year. I mean, we just had dudes. And you can't do that anymore. Like, now Marlon Humphrey's different because his dad played there and he's kind of a legacy, but the Marlon Humphrey stuff would never exist. Levi Wallace is still playing in the National Football League at corner. He was a walk-on, and so like it's different. And that era, until it breaks off, that era right now that we're in right now, that's not possible. You can't do that anymore.
You spent a lot of time on the recruiting trail, which I've heard you tell some recruiting stories. I won't ask you that. I actually got some interesting things I want to ask you. I've asked this of Calvin Thibodeau, coached at Oklahoma for a long time. I've asked some other guys. Best town for food on the recruiting trail.
Best town. All right, so I'm a little bit different now. I didn't. I ate weird when I was on the road. I did not. I only ate one meal a day. And so I'm not a breakfast guy. So I would pack like a bunch of like Cliff Bars or something else, right? And then I would eat one of those for lunch, pack of crackers and a water. And then dinner, I was so tired by the time and this is if I didn't do a home visit, I would just whatever. I mean, grab a burger. I stop by the Chili's or something and get it and go back to the room and crash. During contact period, I'd do home visits and I would eat. So probably the best town, golly. Look, I'll say this: anywhere in Louisiana, man, I'm a Cajun food guy. Anywhere in Louisiana, if I could get some fried crawfish tails, or some boudin, or some raw oysters, I'm in. So a Cajun food probably for me.
When you're going after a big recruit, how cutthroat is it amongst recruiters? Like when you show up to a town and you go check in and you see someone else pull up in a car, like how crazy does it get?
I kind of you learn the game. Like I was a terrible. And credit to Lance Thompson. I remember Lance Thompson when I started my career. Lance Thompson said, "Look, you're a hell of a coach, but when you get to this level, everybody's a hell of a coach." And this was very early in my career before I even went to college. When I was a high school coach, and he said, "If you go to college, you need to learn how to recruit and be the best." And so when I started recruiting, I was terrible, and I just had to learn. I learned on the fly, and then I was different because I wanted to be myself. Like I saw being a high school coach, seeing all the people come in to recruit the kids. Everybody was a used car salesman, and that didn't really you didn't everybody was the same guy just wearing a different shirt, if that makes sense. And so I flipped the script. Vic Cunning came in. He was at Clemson at the time. Vic Cunning came in, and then Dan Hawkins came in from Colorado. He was the head coach at Colorado. And the way that they were recruited, there was no bullshit. They didn't kiss the ass of the kids. They were just being themselves. That really stuck out to our players. And so I was like, that's how I'm just going to be myself. And so I would just be myself. And I didn't kiss the crack of their ass. Now they may not like it early in the process, but but eventually later in the process, they would get tired of the used car salesman approach. And they always came back. So for me on the road, I will say this, when I got good at recruiting, my later part of my career, when I got good at recruiting, I only feared one man on the road. There was only one coach that I was like, man, I got to bring my lunch. I got to work a little harder than normal. And that was John Summerall. And John's the head coach of Tulane right now. So that's the only guy ever on the road that I knew because we had the same area as assistants. So I knew if we were recruiting the same guy, I was going to have to bring my lunch and pull out all my tricks because he was very difficult to go. The rest of them, you could outwork them. Everybody had weaknesses. You could outwork them, out trick them. I got a story that makes a lot of people mad. Like I knew one coach was really lazy and he wouldn't know how to get the test score. So I got, there's different tricks and stuff like that you could do. But John Summerall was the hardest for me to go against in recruiting.
Where's the idea for Quick U come in all of this? Is this just an idea you floated around for a little bit, or did you see a market need and you were like, I got an idea here?
Yeah, so I kind of got the idea when I was at Alabama because we had like a small, you learned the organizational part of the recruiting process and with all the people and the assignments and then what people were responsible for. And so I sat there and I was like, you know what? We're like our own recruiting service. That was kind of how it started. I said, we're our own recruiting service. We don't need all this stuff because we got it. And so, and then you sit in the chair and you write these checks, and I call them like $15,000 kidney shots. You're just writing just $15,000 checks just over and over again for this service that gives me mom and dad's name. This service gives me the film. This service gives me this. And so nobody knew how to put it all together. And so, and how to manage it and continue to run it. And so I kind of had the idea there. And then when I left to go to South Alabama, we didn't have the same resources that we had at Alabama. I could tell the need for it and kind of had it. I knew if I ever got out of coaching, that's what I would get into. I would probably do that. And then when the pandemic hit and there was a school when I left Ole Miss, I was about to go to another school in the SEC. The pandemic hit and the hiring freeze took place. And I was like, hell, if I'm ever going to do it, now's the time. And hey, shout out to Ross Bjork, the greatest AD ever. Okay, ever. It's like, look, it's like Jesus, my family, and then Ross Bjork is like right there because Ross Bjork on his way out the door to Texas A&M gave me a 3-year contract like 4 months before we got fired. So that allowed me to get Quick U started. So shout out to Ross Bjork. He's now the AD at Ohio State. So shout out to Ross. Good dude. Good people. Love him. Christmas party.
Sell Quick U to me. We got a lot of people that are interested in this space. You never know who sees this.
Yeah, so our Oklahoma client, but the basically in a nutshell, I have a privately owned recruiting department, and so everybody that works for me, either work for me at Alabama, work for me at Ole Miss. We got guys from Georgia. We got one employee that's ran recruiting at different places. So everybody that works for us has done it, has sat in the chair and actually worked in college football departments. So it's a level of experience there, and it is a software that we manage and maintain. And it helps and allows, and it's just colleges. What we do is free to the kids and free to high school players, free to high schools. But we provide a way for college recruiting departments to be more efficient and save time and be more accurate in their evaluations and their recruiting process. And if they can spend less time doing all that stuff. They got more time to spend on other things inside their own program, and time is money, right? And so, we got just so many things inside of our system. Like there's one button, like literally it's a button that will save every single coach 2 days of his life every year. And so if you can get 2 days back, okay, of your life, I mean, that's a lot of time, right? And so that's just one button. So we got a bunch of stuff like that makes the whole process more streamlined, more efficient, and allows you to spend time where you see fit, whether that be with your family or on your players or whatever it is.
Tyler Siskey, thanks, brother. I appreciate you, man.
You bet, brother. Thanks for having me.